To bring to you now will hopefully be an eye-opener to many, especially those who think the virus is not a big deal or have taken this pandemic very lightly. We're in conversation with Dr. Lou Rotkowitz, New York emergency room physician and a COVID survivor himself, whose symptoms still persist, although he has made a full recovery.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rotkowitz, joining us from New York today. I know you have a busy schedule and you still made the time to give us such pertinent information. So for everyone, doctor himself is a frontline doctor and he just recovered from COVID-19. So, and he's going to tell us this whole process, how it went for him. So tell me this, when did you know you had the symptoms and what symptoms were these?
Seema,
Absolute first symptoms.
Seema, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I contracted this late March, early April, about 72 hours after intubating a patient. I realized I was exposed at that time, but really never imagined that I possibly could have really contracted it. But 72 hours later from the exposure, I started to develop a cough, and then right away, terrible body aches, and this undulating fevers that would just appear at night. One of the most pronounced things and scary things about this was the nightmares. This really affected my psyche, and it was devastating. One morning, I woke up and took out a bottle of Limacol. I treat a lot of Guyanese patients, and they told me about Limacol. I love Limacol. And I took a bottle of Limacol out of the medicine cabinet and put it to my nose and smelled absolutely nothing. And then it was then early on I realized I was headed for a roller coaster. This disease has two parts to it, at least for me. The first 7 days of the virus coming into your body and taking away your smell, your taste, body aches. You can't think. Your thought process becomes somewhat disorganized. And then after the week went by, that's when you start to have trouble breathing. So just after about a week in, my oxygen saturation level dropped to about 78%. So anything less than 88% is not compatible with life. Simple things like just going out of the house and throwing out your garbage, I found myself like gasping for breath. By the grace of God, I reached out to some friends, colleagues, and they said, you got to get in for help. Otherwise, like something unthinkable, unimaginable could have happened. I was very lucky. One of my closest friends, a New York City police lieutenant who's also a nurse, came to my house. He checked my oxygen saturation level. It was 78%. He then checked it on his own finger, and it was 98% on him. And at that point, we made our way to NYU Medical Center in New York City.
Mm.
And they saved my life. Fortunately, I got sick late in the game. Had I been sicker earlier, again, I suspect a lot of horrible things could have potentially happened to me. Thank God I wasn't intubated. I was placed on something called Vapotherm, which is a high-flow nasal cannula oxygen. And that Vapotherm and the team over at NYU, they truly saved my life. I'm indebted to them.
So is that the primary treatment that you were given? Were you in ICU?
Yes, I went to, I guess it was like an ICU step down. Essentially, NYU had converted most of their beds to ICU beds in the section of the hospital that I was in. I was in like my isolated room, an isolated room, on Vapotherm for about 7 days. I was given Plaquenil. I was given Zithromax. I was given IV steroids. I also was given, I was placed into an experimental trial. I pleaded with them to give me the experimental trial, but God only knows if I did get it. That was one of the interleukin inhibitors. I also took a medication called Kaletra, which is a HIV medication used some time ago.
Yeah.
They also gave me magnesium and gosh, slowly but surely they were able to titrate me off the Vapotherm. I was there for 10 days. It debilitated the heck out of me. I had to go to physical therapy just to sort of get back.
Yeah,
And
that's what I was going to ask you. So,
yeah.
so these 10 days when you were under all these different kind of treatments, uh, were you kind of knocked out most of the time,
No,
or you
no, I
had
mean,
those symptoms, body aches, you still had those in the hospital as well?
no, those went away, and I have to tell you, there was this sense that when they put me on the Vapotherm,
Uh-huh.
not the oxygen, but when I was placed on the Vapotherm, I can't even begin to tell you this sense of euphoria, and because now oxygen was actually being delivered to my body.
Yeah.
This virus deprives you of oxygen, and now all of a sudden the Vapotherm just sort of overtook the virus and delivered the oxygen to just got the oxygen into my body, into my lungs, into my brain, and I can't describe. I just felt instantly started to feel better. Um, I guess also being there in a great place, uh, having excellent care. I knew there was hope. I knew I was going to pull through this thing.
Yeah, of course. So you stayed in the hospital for 10 days and
Yeah.
then you came home. And how long did the physical therapy start right away, or you had to recover more to start the therapy? How did you feel? What was it like at home?
Uh, it was I'm sorry. It was a little lonely because very, very few people could come to see me. Our chaplain, the rabbi from the hospital, came. He came to my house, with an N100 mask on. It wasn't a joke. I'm not entirely sure if I was how infective I was, how infectious I was, but nobody was taking any chances. You know, Fortunately, I live in a very urban area, so I was able to get food delivered. Friends were just checking in on me, making sure I had the basics.
Mhm.
Um, I still needed oxygen. I had a oxygen condenser in my house. Um, I'd say like maybe like like almost a week in, I had full access to the world through social media, which everyone was just sort of following along. I was still taking a course for my master's in public health that I was still somewhat involved with.
That is the daily roundup for today. We thank you for joining us, and we hope you like this segment of Community Roundup. Your feedback is very important to